that. SAT has only received an application and talked about the orders of the process. So there is no, we shouldn't read anything into, oh, SAT's telling us we need to redo our decision. It's not telling us that at all. It's just telling us that someone's made an application and we need to either decide whether we're going to fight it or we're not going to fight it. And that's what we have to do now, second to none in terms of heritage in Western Australia. And it's not the first time that we have stood up and said, when it comes to local significance, we're not absolutely convinced that the heritage industry always gets it right. And I'm happy to stand here and say that, in my opinion, they haven't. What I've done, and you will see that what's up in front of you, part 1, is different to what was in the additional documents. It's expanded. And what it's done is, instead of just simply saying at the end of it that our determination is that the existing buildings have some significance, it actually goes through what that significance is. And it picks up on the new report, as Councillor Groom mentioned, particularly the fact that the buildings represent or have a contribution as contributory places within the heritage area. But it goes through some of the other aspects which I mentioned before, and I won't reiterate. And the second thing is, and the second part of the motion is not up there, but it's in their additional documents, is that in fact, I probably should ask through the chair, is it okay for this replacement, part 1, to be considered as my amendment or alternative motion?
Yeah, happy to do so.
Yeah, okay. So it was a minor change, it was just embellishment. So the part 2 is as printed in the additional documents. And the part 2 is trying to recognise that we're part of the way there to having a strong case, but we're not necessarily all of the way there to having a reasonable case. I won't call it strong, I'll call it a reasonable case. And that is because up until yesterday, we didn't have another independent report. As someone mentioned, it is a desktop report. It's not as thorough as the other reports that we've got to date because the time frame hasn't been sufficient to be able to do that. We need time. The independent architects, Kent and whatever their names are, from Bunbury, need time to research and to complete their report. And it will be very significantly improved when they do that. And it might be that it takes longer than the 16th of June, which is the cut-off date for making submissions as part of the SAT. And so I would like us to request of SAT that they give us a little bit more time. In addition to that, if we consider that the heritage argument is a reasonable one to take to SAT, I'm anticipating that they will also argue that even if it does have heritage, that it might not be possible to save because of that, what I consider the very spurious argument put forward that timber and brickwork and concrete are somehow so pervious that they're going to have asbestos elements in them and therefore none of it can be saved. None of it can be reasonably saved. It is a very spurious argument, and if that was the case, we might as well just rip up the heritage documents because no building will ever be able to be saved because almost every building that's of heritage has got some asbestos in it, and there might be a small risk of impregnation, and when you go and deal with it, you either encapsulate it or you extract it using vacuum cleaners. It's not that bloody hard. Spurious argument. But we need an expert to be able to convince SAT of that because their expert will go blue in the face until such time as SAT actually believes them. And so that's important. We haven't even begun that, so we might need the extra time to do that as well. So at any stage, if the officers, if our lawyer feels like he needs to come back and reconvene and say, maybe you want to reconsider this, then we can do that. But I would emphasise, and I won't go into the confidential stuff in any detail, that having secured an independent report that does say these buildings should be kept, that the risk of costs being awarded is very, very minimal and would be quite unusual, and I would argue, without being in contempt of their court, quite outrageous. Because, you know, we do have standing, we do have a genuine case, we do believe it has local significance, and therefore we should not, and they should not, approve demolition. Thanks.
Councillor Archibald.
Sorry, I forgot that I don't need to put my hand up anymore. I just wanted to ask a question before the alternate motion is seconded. That I'm quite keen.
It was seconded.
Oh, was it? Oh, it was.
Councillor
Okay.
Jones seconded.
I'm quite happy to speak to it then, because I would like to ask Councillor Sullivan if he'd be prepared to put in a part 3 that said, in the event that the above is not approved, accepted, whatever, that Councillor Lawver's amendment is included, so that whatever happens, we do want that documentation to take place. So, you know, if Councillor Sullivan's motion isn't approved by SAT and they make a determination, I'd prefer to have that clause there so that it gets referred to.
So, Councillor Archibald, did you just want to move exact same wording that Councillor Lawver had?
Yeah, just so that it's there and it's in there, so that in any event we would like that to happen. Full stop.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm happy for Councillor
Okay, and
Sullivan.
does someone want to second that? Councillor Pemberton, thank you. Any conversation? Yep, Councillor Jones.
Could I just get
on
some
the proposed amendment to the alternative?
Your microphone. I just wanted some advice from the officer. It would seem to me that this has to come round to us again, and at which point we're told that SAT doesn't agree with us, and then we get the opportunity to add that part in or not. I mean, just seems to be a little bit weak to say, we want you to do this, this, and this, and this, but if you don't, you know, take some photographs. So do we get another chance to no? So we'll just make a decision.
So, yeah, would you like to just comment on that, or Director?
Thank you. Through the chair, I was thinking the same point, Councillor Jones. It kind of does weaken the case a bit. It's like, if we don't get this, well, then can we please have that? I'm not sure what opportunities we've got to add it in later, but I assume there would be an opportunity to bring that back on board. I might ask Chloe for a comment on that. Thank you.
It will be difficult to effectively put a wish list in of conditions, because where we go from here is that the experts prepare their evidence, provide it to SAT, we get an opportunity to review the applicant's evidence, provide that expert response, and it goes to a 2-day hearing in front of the SAT. So the SAT will effectively review the evidence in front of them and make a determination. If they then opt to set aside the city's decision and issue an approval in accordance with what the applicant is seeking, it is really up to them and the evidence that's put in front of them as to what conditions they apply to set approval. So really, if the city is trying to defend a decision where fabric is completely retained, we wouldn't necessarily be asking for an archival record. It might be something the applicant floats as a, hey, city, you suggested this, and we're happy to oblige. So there's no harm in recommending it, to make that sort of wish known that regardless of the outcome, we want something recorded. But yeah, it's sort of in SAT's hands from here.
Yeah, I'll go Councillor Lawver first, and then Sullivan.
Just a question on the proposed amendment to the alternate recommendation. I'm just wondering if that might be better as an advisory note that the applicant requested that was removed in the initial instance, and we removed that. But when we removed that, we also put in these other stronger protections, just as a note, giving them some context as to what the original thing was. If that might get to, because I agree with you, but I don't want to weaken our case at all.
So, would staff be able to comment on advisory note versus
I was
inclusion?
thinking exactly the same thing, and it could be something that is left out of a council recommendation. It's something we could raise with the lawyers and seek their advice as to what's the best way of including that should this fail.
Okay,
Can I make
Councillor Sullivan.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to make the comment that when I started this, I was just suggesting, and I didn't quite know which way would be the best way to deal with it. I think we have often put notes in, and I'd be quite happy for it to be a note rather than a part of the recommendation. But if there was a view that it was stronger as part of the recommendation, then that's fine. We must also remember that the bit that we're talking about keeping is not all of the fabric; it's just a little bit of the fabric. So no matter what happens, we still would like to get it documented. But I'm happy. I'll let Councillor Sullivan speak, and then if it's seen that it's easier to withdraw it and put it in as a note, I'm very happy to do that too.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I would worry strongly about putting it into our motion because the formal process we've been asked to reconsider, we will formally have to go back and show SAT the reconsideration process that they will expect to see our decision and all of it. What the applicant will do is they will lodge their arguments, and I will assume that their arguments will say, we want to go back to the officer's original recommendation. That'll be their starting point. But they will argue that, and the one from back in whenever it was, a few months back, but they will argue exactly what they argued to us, that they want clause whatever it was, 3 or whatever, taken out. And then we will have an opportunity to respond to that. And given that what we just did, and that's why I did it, which was encourage you to support what Councillor Lorber did in the first part, I have no doubt that our officers will say that, well, no, sorry, we don't want that historic record taken out, and actually argue that against that particular argument that the applicant puts in. So it will be a part of it. I don't think we need to tell the staff to do that. It was part of their original proposal as well, and we just reiterated that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to check in with Councillor Archibald and
Yes.
and in the first instance as the mover.
I'm happy to withdraw the amendment, given that it's taken on board that it's an issue we should raise if we get to that point. Yeah.
Excellent. And I'm just checking Councillor Pemberton as a seconder. Yep. Okay. All right. That's a good one. Okay. Any debate further on the alternative recommendation as it's been put up on the screen? So noting that it's different to, it's amended to what was in the additional documents. No additional debate. Councillor Sullivan, are you happy to close? Yeah. Right. So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And against? Councillor Kamada, Graham and Busick against. And so the alternative recommendation is passed. Thank you. Okay. Moving on now. C2205. Let's just check. Anyone want to make comment on 2, 3 and 4? Yeah, Councillor Busick. All right, we'll go through one by one. 2205-2 monthly financial report. I'll move those. Seconder, Councillor Graham. Any debate? Councillor Busick.
Thank you. I just want to draw the attention to the capital work in progress in this monthly financial report. As of the 30th of June 2021, it was 23.6 million. And at the cumulative total for the 30th of April this year, it's 38.1. These two figures are important. The capital works in progress as presented in the audited financials dated the 30th of June 2020.
Sorry, Councillor Busick, can you just let us know which page you're referring to so that all elected members can be up to
I've actually
speed with
emailed this to Kylie this afternoon, but there's 188 of 236 of the meeting attachments.
Thank you.
So those two figures are important. We've also had the draft audited financial statements of 30th of June 2021, and it stated 52.2 million. And that's a big difference. You had it from the 30th of June 2021, it was 23.5, 23.6, and 52.2. Big difference. So unless there is evidence that the auditors have made a mistake, I see no particular reason why we should not make that correction. And we haven't made that correction, and I brought this up a number of times. I received an email from a constituent, and this is what they've said. I've been personally looking for the City of Fremantle 2020-21 annual report since early 2022. It still has not been published. As discussed, please find attached information on the publication of annual reports for the 3 councils surrounding Fremantle. The City of Melville 2021 annual report was published on the 16th of December 2021. The City of Cockburn on the 22nd of December 2021. The Town of East Fremantle on the 3rd of February this year. The audited financial statements for the year ended 30th of June 2021 should have been completed and signed off many months ago. The constituents of Melville, Cockburn and East Fremantle are well served by the timely and transparent report made available to them online. At the last OCM, I presented a narrative with substantial evidence that the Civic Centre cost is over $61 million. The information challenged the $47 million narrative, and I asked a number of questions. And I didn't ask these questions to be difficult. It's just that the numbers are quite staggeringly different. The first question was, what is the current total project cost of the Walyup Civic Centre? Second question, when will the monthly financial information report show accurately the total project costs of the Civic Centre? Third question was, how much has the total project costs of $45 million gone over budget? And why has the total project costs blown out by $22 odd million? Now, for 3.5 weeks, I didn't have any response to these questions. I can understand the council's busy, the CEO is very busy with the budgets, as we all are. But it was interesting that yesterday the response was, we're busy, we'll get to your questions. That's fine. This afternoon, about 4:20, I received, there is a response to those questions. I haven't had an opportunity to have a look at them. But I find that quite extraordinary. One can come to the conclusion that you had the information all along. And that would be great if you did, because that means you would have gone off and revised the figures that were supplied to you. So I guess we might get an opportunity to get a response on those 4 questions. And in addition, I've also emailed these today to the council, is question 1, when will the capital works in progress be corrected? What are the specific reasons for our financials and that they have not been signed off? We're going to go into another financial year without signing off on our previous year. It almost becomes irrelevant then. And question 3, why are the internal control findings relating to the audit from the year ended 30th of June 2021 not presented to the councillors yet? We're in budget deliberations. We've got some really important decisions to make. We need to have accuracy and transparency, and we also need to have a context in our decision making. And hence why I've pursued this item. I've pursued it for a long period of time, and I think that it's important that we have these figures before us. Thank you.
I might just ask the CEO to make comment in regards to those particular points and particularly on the audit.
Thank you. Through the chair,
In March of this year, Council, we presented a series of draft financial statements that we've also presented to our auditor for Council to consider. Those draft statements have been presented to our auditor, and we are waiting for them to finalise their assurance of those. My understanding is they have asked some recent questions. We've responded to those again, and we are, just like Councillor Busick, seeking the auditor to sign off on the statements so that we can present them formally. Those statements are on our website, by the way, in draft format, and were presented through the council meeting in March, so have been on our website since that period. The items in the monthly financial report, we take on notice. We probably think we could update them now because we believe the financial statements are in a position where we could start to attest them. So I agree we should probably amend those monthly financial statements, absolutely. We have received the questions asked by Councillor Busick probably a couple of days after the statements were identified last month. We have been busy preparing budgets and finalising audits and dealing with COVID and all those sorts of things. Sometimes we have to prioritise how we respond to things. I did advise Councillor Busick that that would be the case. And we were able to get back some of that detail today, and that's been presented to Councillor Busick and the rest of Council earlier this afternoon.
Any other debate on the item? No, if not, oh, sorry.
Just ask a quick question, if I could. Are we aware of the auditing processes for the surrounding councils that were mentioned? Are they going through requirement of the Auditor General audit, or are they externalised? I'm happy to have that on notice.
Yeah, I might have to come back to you. I think Town of East Fremantle are directly audited by the Auditor General like we are. I'm unaware of the other two. I think Coburn is private party audited at the moment, but of course Auditor General does control that as well.
Thank you. If there's no further debate, I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? And against? Councillor Busick against, them passed. C2205-3, the Statement of Investments. I'll move that if I can have a seconder. Yep, Councillor Graham. Any debate? No, I'll put that to the vote then. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. And C2205-4, Schedule of Payments. I'll move that one, and a seconder. Councillor Graham, thank you. Any debate? All those in favour? And that's unanimous, thank you. And work through the last ones. We have no motions of previous notice has been given. There's no urgent business. There's no late items, no confidential business. And I'm happy to close the meeting at 8:06. Thanks, everyone.